Welcome to One Chapter, One Thought. I'm Pastor Chris from Lincroft Bible Church in New Jersey. Every weekday I read one chapter of the New Testament and offer one brief devotional thought. Today's reading is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13. That day, Jesus went out of the house and was sitting by the sea, and a large crowd gathered to him. He got into a boat and sat down, and the whole crowd was standing on the beach. And he spoke many things to them in parables. He said, "Behold, the sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the road, and the birds came and ate them up. Others fell on the rocky places, where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up because they had no depth of soil. When the sun had risen, they were scorched because they had no root and withered away. Others fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them out. And some fell on good soil and yielded a crop, some 100, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear." And the disciples came to him, saying, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" Jesus answered and said, "To you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been granted. For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But whoever does not have, even what little he does have will be taken away from him. Therefore, I speak to them in parables, because while seeing they do not see, while hearing they do not understand. In this case, the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, 'You will keep on hearing, but will not understand. You will keep on seeing, but you will not perceive. For the heart of the people has become dull. With their ears they scarcely hear, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise they would hear with their eyes, see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and return, and I would heal them. But you are blessed, but blessed are your eyes, because they see, and your ears, because they hear. For truly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it. Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what has been sown in his heart. This is the one on whom the seed was sown beside the road. The one on the seed was sown on the rocky places. This man hears the word, immediately receives it in joy, but he has no firm root in himself, and it's only temporary. When affliction or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he falls away. And the one on whom seed was sown among the thorns, this is the man who hears the word, and the worry of the world and the deceitfulness of wealth choke out the word, and it becomes unfruitful. And the one on whom the seed was sown on the good soil is the man who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and brings forth some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Jesus presented another parable to them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who has sowed good seed in his field. While his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went away. But when the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the tares became evident also. The slave of the landowner came to him and said, 'Sir, did you not sow good seed in the field? How does it have tares?' He said to them, 'The enemy has done this.' The slave said to him, 'Do you want us then to go out and gather them up?' But he said, 'No. For while you are gathering up the tares, you may uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, first gather up the tares and bind them into bundles to burn them up, and gather the wheat into my barn.' He presented another parable to them, saying, 'The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. And this is smaller than all the other seeds, but when it is full grown, it is larger than the garden plants and becomes a tree. So the birds of the air come and nest in its branches.' He spoke another parable to them, saying, 'The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 pecks of flour until all was leavened.' All these things Jesus spoke to the crowds in parables, and he did not speak to them without a parable. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet, 'I will open my mouth in parables, and I will utter hidden things since the foundation of the world.' Then he left the crowds and went into the house. His disciples came to him and said, 'Explain to us the parable of the tares of the field.' And he said to them, 'The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, and the field is the world. And as for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, and the tares are the sons of the evil one. The enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. So just as the tares are gathered up and burned with fire, so it shall be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send forth his angels. They will gather them out of his kingdom, all stumbling blocks, and those who commit lawlessness, and will throw them into the furnace of fire. And in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. But then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid again. And from joy over it he goes and sells all he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking fine pearls, and upon finding one pearl of great price, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet cast into the sea, and gathering fish of every kind. When it was filled, they drew it up to the beach, and sat down and gathered the good fish into containers, but the bad they threw away. So it will be at the end of the age, the angels will come forth and take out the wicked from among the righteous, and will throw them into the furnace of fire, and in the place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all these things? They said to Jesus, Yes. Jesus said to them, Therefore, every scribe who has become a disciple of the kingdom of heaven is like a head of household, who brings out his treasure, things old and new. When Jesus had finished these parables, he departed from there. He came to his hometown and began teaching them in their synagogue, so that they were astonished and said, Where did this man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers? Is this not the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us? Where then did this man get all these things? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to him, A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and in his own household. And he did not do many miracles there because of unbelief. One thought. The literary structure of Matthew is arranged around 5 discourses or teaching blocks. The first teaching block was Sermon on the Mount, chapters 5 through 7. The second was the mission discourse to the disciples in 10. And here Jesus goes to talk about the parable of the kingdom discourse. So parables are more or less a simple story with a very profound point. They're taken from everyday life in Jesus' time, and he's using them to draw out the spiritual implications. Now, parables, for those that get it, they get it. Those that have believed in Christ and have faith, they understand the meaning. But those that are hearing these things and they don't believe, the meaning is locked out from them. But Jesus then goes to share one of his most famous parables, the wheat and the tares. And in this parable, there's a field, and a man sows good seed. He's trying to grow wheat. But then his enemy comes along at night, and he puts weed seeds, or seeds of various kinds of weeds, into the field so that the wheat and the weeds are growing together. So this isn't the nice, pure, perfect field of grain that the owner would want. And so the workers come to him and say, hey, should we just chop this all down and start separating out the wheat and the weeds? And the landowner says, no, let's wait. Let them grow together until the harvest. And then the point that Jesus is making here, he interprets this parable in verses 36 through 43. He says the field is the world. Now, this is very, very important to understand this interpretation of Jesus. The field is the world. It's life, essentially. Some people, like St. Augustine, took this field to mean the church. And so, more or less, for most of the church's history, people say, well, the church is a mixed group of, some people believe, some people don't believe, and all of these things. That's not what Jesus is saying here. He's saying the field is the world. And so both those who believe, those that are labeled good seed, those that believe and those that don't, they grow up together. In other words, the church, the people of the good seed, are going to coexist in the world alongside unbelievers. And so, therefore, there's not going to be any utopia until Jesus returns. Notice that Jesus says, don't separate these things out until the end. So this idea that the church is going to kind of take over the world and just make everything nice and awesome, that's just not true. Some people think that because the church and the gospel is likened to yeast and leaven and growing trees, that the church will eventually take over everything. I don't think that's the case. Yes, the church does grow, but we see the tares grow along with it. The weeds grow with it. The opposition grows to the church as the church grows. And so I think what Jesus is calling us to here is patience. He counsels patience. He says even to the angels here, you're not going to separate this out until the right time, until my second coming. And so we need to patiently endure until the final day. We also need to recalibrate our expectations and understand that this side of eternity, there will be no utopia. There will be no Christian takeover of anything. The church expands often through suffering. And so we patiently endure, we share the gospel, we sow the good seed, we hope it takes root, we hope people are saved, and we await our Savior.